conversations. Let's have real conversations.
Get ready to stir it up.
Life events and everything in between. Let's go.
Get ready to stir it up.
No capping. If guests got you covered right up.
Get ready to stir it up. Stir it up.
Come on.
Get ready to stir it up.
Welcome to Stir It Up. For the first time ever, I have two guests. I have Dr. Demi Letsa, and then I have Mr. Edwin Boachie Yiadom. I'll do the introductions. Normally we would say ladies first, but I'll kind of go against that grain. It's okay to go against that grain, isn't it? So I will start with Edwin. So Edwin is a clinical psychologist, a lecturer and a training consultant. He works at Collibu currently and consults for various organizations, both international and local organizations, and some NGOs. And this is in the area of mental health and psychological well-being, right? He has a strong affinity to believing that there's good in everyone. And I like that thought. So do you think human beings are inherently good?
Yes.
They're inherently good, not inherently bad.
We are.
We are
Inherently good.
Good. And he likes to bring out the best in us as people. So Edwin is married and has 3 daughters. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me again.
It's great to have you.
Same here.
Then there is Dr. Demi.
Hi.
So Demi is a population and reproductive health researcher. She's been implementing donor-funded reproductive health programs across the globe for the last 19 years.
Yes.
That's a lot of work. And a lot of people you've been supporting.
Yes,
You love doing that?
I do. It's my passion. Or one of my passions.
It's one of your passions. So she's passionate about women empowerment and corporate leadership,
Yes.
right? And in her spare time, Demi dreams up amazing novels, right?
I do.
So eventually you're going to write us a book.
Eventually, now that it's out in the
Universe. Let's put it out in the
universe.
universe and get the universe to hold on to that for us. So today, in our series around emotions, we're going to be talking about desire. And one of the reasons why I wanted 2 guests was to have a conversation around desire from both sexes, because sometimes it could be easily skewed to one side. And we're going to be talking about desire. And I know that for most people, when you think about desire, it goes straight to sexual desire. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the full gamut and spectrum of areas that we have huge desires in, right? So desire is a want, is a craving, is a yearning for, something, right? And there is physical, emotional, material, intellectual. There's so many kinds of desires. So that's what we're going to be talking about, right? All right, so digging in. Who do I start with? I'll start with you, Demi. Is that okay?
That's fine.
It's fine. So just thinking about, when you think about desire, what comes to your mind?
Well, just like you said, Ukia, a want, a craving. You've objectified something. It could be an idea, it could be a human, it could be an immaterial object, for instance, a car, a house, anything that happens to have your attention, and that is what you want. It could even be aspirational or motivational. So it's a laser focus, if you will, on one item or a group of items that a person wants to have in their lives.
Okay. So would you say that it's very natural for us as humans to have these desires?
It is. It's many desires can be innate, if we want to have that definition of it. And a lot of it is mimical because, when there was this experiment once where a psychologist went to a hospital with newborns. They were just about 24 hours old. And he would smile and stick out his tongue to them in their cribs or bassinets, and then the babies would mimic the same. But they also found that it was only for humans. So some things we are born with, and others we are socialized to want. So desire can have both sides, things that we want to have in us that we desire, and also things that socially we've been, acclimatized or accustomed or conditioned to want, but they are not necessities. So
Edwin, thoughts?
Right. So desire is a natural thing. It actually propels us to grow.
Okay.
Yes, because there are dimensions where you would want something and then it's actually also fleeting. So you may have a desire for something and then you achieve it. It doesn't end. There is a need for yet another desire to help you always want to achieve, because it's actually the foundation of our growth, if I can put it, as humans, because there is a need to live, there is a need to survive, and it takes the desire to, example, get satisfied when you are hungry, the desire to procreate, so that the human race does not go extinct. So yes, desire may be fleeting, but it is fundamentally natural. It's very okay for us to have desires.
Okay. In your experience and in your practice, how does desire differ from the other emotions?
Right.
How is it different?
Right. So desire is actually a thought, and then it is powered by the emotion.
Okay.
Right. So I have a desire for, say, as Demi said, say a material thing. I want to build a house, for example. That is a desire. There must be a motivation to propel it. What's the motivation? I don't like the fact that every landlord can say anything to me and can increase the rent at any point in time. So it is that emotion, the emotion to be my own boss, have my own house, accommodate my own family, that propels the thoughts into action. And so desire actually is a thought, and there are emotions that fuel the thought into action. Apart from, take desire out, the other emotions are, if I can call it, reactive. So for example, pick anger, for instance. There must have been something that triggers my anger. But for desire, it is the thought, and then the anger of what, if I don't get it, what it can be. If I get it, what it can be. That fuel me into action.
So if I take grief is as a result of something. Fear is as a result of something.
Yes.
Shame and guilt are as a result of something. Whereas desire, but could desire not be as a result of something? Like I feel alone, and so I desire to have someone with me.
So natural, in fact, all things being equal, desire is as a result of something. Could be biological,
Okay.
could be social.
Okay.
However, it's a combination of the thoughts and the feeling.
Got it.
So for example, if I do this, if I desire this and I get it, what is the reward? What is the outcome for me? The joy, as they say, desire achieved is joyful to the heart.
Okay.
Right? So when I achieve this particular desire, what is the outcome for me? The emotion. And usually these emotions, even though they seem to be like the outcome, they are actually the propelling factor. Okay. It rather pushes you to achieve. And so oftentimes you realize that, for instance, when let's say someone wants to open a business, right? And eventually is able to do that. At the grand opening, he's excited just like everyone. But when no one is around, that is when you see him or her do like, wow, I made it. Now that is the joy that was already there before the satisfaction of it. So it's almost like, finally my joy is being seen by everyone. All these while, I had this inner joy and I had this desire to let that joy come to fruition.
Got it. Demi?
I like that. But just to piggyback on what you said, Edwin, why do you think people like to sometimes, quote unquote, celebrate in private? Like you just said, yes, I made it.
Right.
When no one was around. I just thought that was interesting.
And you see, so usually our desires are private, right?
It appears so.
They are personal. And if I am able to explain it to you, that is one thing. But beyond the explanation, and sometimes even the explaining is difficult because people would hardly get what you really want. It could be socially inappropriate for the people, but it is you. That's what you want. That's what you desire. So when you get it, it's almost as if me against the world.
Right.
So it makes a celebration personalized. It is the first time the thing you had in your mind. It's almost as if now I'm not using words. The action proves all
What
the
you had
things
in
I was
mind.
thinking of.
I just thought that was interesting.
No, it definitely is. And maybe culturally, we are also not socialized to celebrate publicly as much.
I know.
Right,
We're not.
from our context to a certain extent as well. But you're absolutely right. You know, it's a private thing, so you tend to kind of have that time alone where you kind of, you know, pat yourself on the back
Yes.
as well. So for you as well,
Yeah.
how do you think desire is different from the other emotions?
Well, Edwin explained a lot of what we think generally what desire is. Now, if we want to draw a hard line, the desire is completely different from any other emotion, you know, anger, sadness, all of that. That cannot be true because emotions are very often interrelated and interconnected. But desire in of itself is it's a want for something. You know, this is just a very basic definition that I think we can work with. Now, if you want something, well, yes, like Edwin said, you may be propelled or fueled by anger. Perhaps you're at a low-level job and the boss comes in and talks to you, quote unquote, rough, right?
Yeah.
And so you're fooled by anger in that instance, and you're like, you know what, I better go online. Look for educational opportunities, look for other jobs. You know, everybody has had that moment before, you know, searching for, you know, I got to get out of here type of thing. So you're fooled by that anger in that moment. And now your desire is to perhaps upgrade.
So it's kind of setting direction.
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yes, it could. The example you gave, okay, I feel lonely. I would love to have a partner to do life with. And maybe socially also we're conditioned, well, by 35, you should think about settling down. Whoever made all these rules, but that's for another day. And so you feel like, okay, well, then I better get a life partner or look into settling down, you know, with somebody on a serious level. So it varies. And then there are also the innate ones that we don't really have much control over. You're cold, you get something warm. You're hungry, you get, you know, some food, and all of those physiological needs that we have. But on top of that physiological need, you can also want something. I may be hungry. I know I need to, you know, satisfy that urge or that desire, but I may actually want something very sweet or want a special meal or for whatever reason, you know. So we have desire comes in various forms, various aspects, various levels. But I would say for emotions, they are really intertwined, and they all stem or originate from one part of the brain, the limbic system that controls our emotions. So desire really is intercorrelated with our other emotions.
Okay. So staying with you there, how do you think our desires influence the way we behave?
Oh, it does, wholly and completely. You know, because if you're in school and you're a student, your desire to do well or have good grades or to graduate and then to get a job is what is fueling your ability to get up, study, you know, through the night and all of that. If you're a worker, your desire to get up to the C-suite is what is fueling your day-to-day work ethic and putting in, you know, the work to be able to climb up the corporate ladder. So whatever it is, whatever situation that we're in, certainly desire can serve as a full motivator for whatever we want to achieve in life. Good, and sometimes it could be bad. Not all desires are aspirational, like the examples that we've given.
Right. So to add to that, desire is motivational.
Yes.
Right. So we are motivated by desire to achieve. So there is the ego desire. The ego desire talks about our basic needs, the need for survival. And it's usually external. I need food to survive. I need this to survive. And then after you have achieved all the basic needs, then comes your soul That's where we go soul searching. The soul tries to communicate something to you. Beyond all of these accomplishments, you have your house, you have your spouse. What next? Then comes, I can do something. What is my purpose? And that is when these questions come to us. Who am I? What am I here for? Then we start searching for purpose. So desire becomes that motivation. So that's the soul desire. The motivation to achieve. The motivation to go further. The motivation to arrive at something you really, really want. That's your purpose. So it helps you to find your purpose as a person.
That's a really good thought, right? Because when I think about desire being motivational, it's almost like it's a thing that drives you, whether positively or negatively.
Exactly.
But having a certain desire, like we said, it's directional. It motivates you, but it's also in the future,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
one of the emotions that's not really. It's not happening in the present per se, right? So it's all about what do I want for the future, and that's when the joy comes, like you talked about. Like I'm happy when I achieve that goal. So there's one thing I've been doing as I've been doing this series, which has been myths and truths. So I'm going to kind of speed date you through a whole bunch of myths I have, and you tell me whether it's a myth or it's a truth.
Right.
Right? So the first one is, and I'll hopscotch between the two of these. So Demi,
Yes.
desires are often out of reach.
No, they're not entirely often out of reach. I wouldn't maybe the word often. So they may not be possible. No, let me reword that. They may not be present now, but they're possible. So it's always a possibility. So it's not entirely out of your reach or your grasp. However, some desires might be completely out of your reach. If for instance, let's say I imagined I would meet Oprah Winfrey tomorrow, that may be out of my reach. I know that's a bit absurd, but you know what I mean.
I know what you mean.
So some things are completely out of the realms of possibility, but then you never know, right? Things happen, miracles happen, like they say. That's a good one.
He's an optimist, so let's see what maybe he has a difference of
The
opinion.
example you give about meeting Oprah Winfrey tomorrow. So you put it on social media. And then her PR catches it. And Oprah being Oprah is able to fly.
Tomorrow she flies on her private jet and comes to
So there is always a possibility. Right? So indeed, desire may not necessarily always be out of reach, but I agree with her on the fact that sometimes there could be unrealistic desires, especially when you bind it by time. But of course, I mean, when you bind it by time, when you bind it by possibilities like Oprah,
right.
who knows?
But then
I guess I get that, right? But it's like you don't have a job, and you say that you're buying a house and a car next week, right? Well, you could be winning the lottery, but what are the chances,
what's
right?
the chances? They say 1 in 3 million, but don't quote me on that.
So desire equals selfishness.
That's a good one.
So, what is selfishness? Okay. Desire may be self-centered, but may not necessarily be selfish.
Okay.
So I would say it's a big myth.
Cool. And that's fair. Desires are all consuming. They can consume you.
They could be. But I think that may be a factor of individual makeup and personality. Some people can just go completely OCD over a desire and just have that one direction, one focus without balance. So if it becomes imbalanced at any point where you're unable to perform all your other, roles and responsibilities and function as a human, say for this one thing that you're obsessed over, then then would say that you're off course a bit.
Got it.
So myth.
Desires are always conscious.
A big myth.
Okay.
Why do I say that? desires help us to survive. And not all of our survival instincts come immediately to our conscious. Sometimes they help us to even act before we think.
Okay.
So desires may not necessarily be always conscious. And that is what it's usually our unconscious psyche that informs what we do. So biologically, naturally, Sigmund Freud says that we are motivated by our sex drive and then our aggression. So we are biologically aggressive for the sake of protection. So, for example, take a man and a woman. The woman is supposed to procreate, to allow for continuity of generation. The man cannot do that, but the man can protect. So naturally, men are protective, and that is why, say you go for a choir rehearsal and you close at night, you're not driving. Maybe you stay quite close by far. Without the
Quite close by far.
Yes. So without even asking for help, the man would volunteer to take you to your home.
Generally, that's a chivalrous man, if I could say that word right.
Do they exist?
I wonder.
Do they exist? Yes, we do.
Oh, did you hear that? He said we.
He's personalized.
So yes, biologically we are protected.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. But then also it's our biological instinct for protection and all of that. So that's what makes what you are saying. So I think that's obviously a myth.
Okay. All right.
Obviously a myth.
I think that there are certain needs that we have or desires that we have that might not always be conscious, because there's sometimes you want intimacy, but you can't even name it as that's what you want. Or you want, there are people who crave a certain power, but they might not even realize that that's what it is, that, it's almost a bit of a subconscious thing, right? Or it could just even be safety, right? So I can see why it would be a myth. Or even like spiritual fulfillment. Sometimes it's a hunger that where you feel like you want a connection with something bigger or greater than yourself, right? But you might not name it as a overt desire that you're naming.
But to add to what you're saying, if a person hasn't been conscientized to identify that need or that want or that desire, they would not even know, because it's not in your lifespan. You haven't even heard of the word or have no idea that women or men or whoever it is crave intimacy. Let's say you've never heard the word before, you don't even know what it is, and you cannot identify it. So I think that also plays a role. Our social environment also brings to the fore some of the things that we need and desire more often than other ones, and then those are sort of put on the back burner or relegated deeper into our subconscious, and we do not even know that it's a want, and very often sometimes it's even a need. For instance, for intimacy and all of that, if we're not conscientized towards that, we just will have no idea of how to actually pinpoint that desire in the whole spectrum of our emotions and all the neurons firing all at once.
Demi, desires are always rational.
No, they're not. So it's a big myth. They're not. We're not always rational beings. So
the heart wants what the heart wants.
It surely does. It surely does. The good thing about being an emotionally intelligent human being is to recognize when your desires are not entirely rational, and then to just rework yourself through that. But not all desires are rational. No, not at all. And then we can talk about the psychopathic desires that people have now. Those are not rational. For instance, pedophiles, people who are unnaturally attracted to younger children. And so there's a whole gamut of desires that are not, socially acceptable and illegal.
Okay. Desire leads to action.
Not all desires lead to action.
Okay.
Oftentimes, desire may lead or propel you to action. But there are some people who really desire and yet not make the efforts. Desire does not have wheels except the effort we put to it.
It's a good one.
That is a good one. I agree.
Okay, so now let's begin to unpack the different types of desire, right?
Right.
So maybe once again, I will name it, and then we talk about it a little bit. So let's start off with physical desire, because I think that's what everybody's been waiting for us to talk about. So let's just get into it, right? And I would break physical desire into anything that we want for our physical being, i.e., whether it's food, whether it's sexual desires, or whether it's, thirst, or whether it's for material things, right? Well, I'll separate material desire out. So let's just do physical desires, which is like to crave, to satisfy human urges. What drives that?
Right. So, when you check Maslow's hierarchy of need, sex, procreation is part of the basic needs, the physiological needs.
Okay.
So, all physiological needs are for survival,
Okay.
oftentimes. And so, survival allows for that. And then, so when it comes to physical desire, as she said, could be the need or the want for something society recognizes. And then also the want or the need for affection, for food. But whatever drives it, the fundamental is survival. We need to survive. And so there is always the direction to want something. For example, as you mentioned, food. If I'm very hungry and I'm dying, I probably don't even care what food. If I'm not too hungry, I can be very picky, right?
Okay.
The same way, sex. Of course, I know that's what a lot of people are waiting to hear. But yes, physical touch, we long it, we need it, we want it. It's a desire. When I say we need it, it's not as if without it, there are celibates. But to a large extent, we want it, and it's also because it's part of our biological fabric. It helps to satisfy certain needs.
Okay. Demi, do you think men and women see physical desire the same way?
Not entirely. If we take the basic physiological needs away, which Edwin has talked about, so no need to rehash those. Like he said, in Maslow's hierarchy, there's a debate actually if sex should be included in the basic needs, but that's for another time. So
What's the debate?
If sex should be included
I'm saying, but
in important things such as...
what's the argument?
So the argument is sex... Without sex, will we die? Is it a
I get it, but where should it be
need?
in the
hierarchy?
If we move into
so people say it shouldn't be on the bottom line.
line.
Yeah, if you drew the Maslow's pyramid, so the bottom has your food, your water for thirst, and all of those things. And these are basic needs. Without these things, we will die. So the average number of days or weeks you can survive without food is 3 weeks. For water, I think it's 72 hours or so, and things are going downhill from there. Sex, not necessarily. So
what I'm asking is, where should we put it?
Some people say higher, some people say, but if you're taking it from the angle of it's necessary for us to procreate, right, and to continue the human race, then it is important that it's at the base of that pyramid. But that's a whole other debate that we can get.
Did you want to say something?
In fact, if you take it from the basic physiological need, you are rather promoting it. Because the next is safety need. The next is love and belonging.
Yes.
Yes, you may want to put it at love and belonging, but then comes, I need your love, not your sex alone. So it's physiologically, that is the best. Any approach to push sex from physiological need, you are promoting it, probably to self-actualization.
Maybe. All the way at the top. No. But the argument is that it won't kill you immediately.
No, I get that.
So I think that's a bit of a...
But it's fundamental.
It is
fundamental.
I wholly agree. We're social beings, and so that connection and that human touch is really, really important. So if we take all those needs, then it comes to sexual attraction or desire? What is the thing that makes us have butterflies in our stomach when you see the object of your desire, I should say, So, and it varies. And a lot of it is based on brain chemicals, our hormones,
Yeah.
We all have a bit of testosterone. Men have higher than women. All of us have adrenaline. So these hormones are the ones that when you see someone or somebody or you're flirting, all the rush, the giddy feeling and all of that desire, that want. Now, if you go back all the way to evolutionary biologists, they will tell you that we're attracted to what we think will give us, like you're saying, the safety, the comfort, the protection, and all of that. So a female would be attracted to a male who looks buff, looks like he can protect us all from, animals and stuff who come chasing us, So there's always that. And then the male would then be attracted to soft features. That means more perhaps, a feminine look, maybe a curvaceous body, can carry the children, quote unquote. But as society has progressed, those basal instincts, some argue that is still there. And that, naturally at the baseline, we're attracted to what we're attracted to. But then everybody's wired a bit differently. And if people were open enough to share what their physical attraction or sexual attraction to others are, then it would be interesting. So women love them all kinds of ways. It could be tall, it could be short. There's the myth that women love tall, dark, and handsome, but that may not entirely be true. Another woman may be very much attracted to a brain, somebody with whom they can connect deeply.
So more psychosexual.
Yes, that intellectual level. Somebody may look at the physicality. So it varies. So I would say for women, what our instinct or our attractiveness to men are is quite varied. But overall, I think looking for connection, looking for a bond, an emotional bond, that the oxytocins that make us bond with a partner on the long term is also important, and that's safety and protection. And this, I'm not meaning physical safety and protection only, but emotional safety and protection. I think that's very important from the woman's point of view.
Okay. We'll come to the men's point of view in a moment. But just staying with you, because you talked about it in a very primal
way
setting, right? And began to bring it into the modern day setting. In this new world of social media,
right,
where we are meant to be closer as a people, yet we are so far apart now, right? And we have all these keyboard warriors who will not even be able to step to you and have a conversation with you if they saw you in person. But now will see you and be able to pick up their phone and say, you look really hot today, because there's not that interpersonal connection anymore. Is there a way that technology and all of, social media and just the way we're socially interacting today is changing the way men and women see, perceive, desire each other?
Oh, it is, because a lot of things are changing from when I was a teenager, where I began to, have feelings and attraction towards boys at the time, these natural things when you hit puberty. There was no social media. So now it's completely different, and we have to have that understanding, that younger people now, or even older people, because social media we all use social media, but that has opened up a whole can of worms in the world of space that is completely different. The images that we're shown all the time is that there's a certain perception of what is attractive, and there's a certain perception of what's not attractive now. So that from the baseline is incorrect, because then nobody's getting to know who the person really is. We're just looking at the outer shell and quote unquote the packaging. And people say that all the time. And that packaging is a myth, as you know, from social media. So from the get, we're given wrongful information and data that our brains are processing, as though they were
Facts.
Real and factual. And then we're ending up making conclusions and associations in a way that does not really help. One prime example is online dating, which puts us right in the middle of our physical attraction, or, dating and all of that. And social media connects the two, right? So then you're not initially meeting the person when, as you're walking in the aisles of a grocery store or at school, which is where many people met at university. Many couples would say they met at university or whatever the case may be, in an airport, all of that. So it's taken all that bits aside. And now it's put the war, if you will, on social media. And we all know that people present not actually who they truly are or their real selves. Even their images are often not what they're supposed to be. So social media, yes, it has its good parts, certainly, as we know. But then when it comes to physical attraction, wanting to date, and all of those things that make us human as we all are, we have to step back a bit and go back to the, hello, Edwin, my name is Demi, how are you? And having
a real conversation.
And then wanting Edwin to pursue me.
Absolutely.
For me to be the object of his desire. So let's switch it around and see what happens then.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And as modern as we would like to think we've become, a woman doesn't want to pursue a man. She wants a man to pursue her.
Yes.
Right? And men might say they want women to be more forward, but I think that there is a joy for a man in being the one who pursues a woman, because that is where there is a bit of a thrill for a man. So I have a question. So follow-ups on that. How do men and women perceive sexual desire?
So just as you said, as I said earlier on, protection. That is why men will be attracted to vulnerability.
Okay.
So oftentimes, and I always say women are very smart. So before you go thinking you are going to win her heart, before she even opens the door, she would have drawn your attention to her, right? So if we see the vulnerability in them, if we see the open gate, there's a desire to go for attraction, right? They are attractive to our eyes. We are happy to engage. We are happy to go. Yes, as you're saying, men now want women to be forward-coming. It's probably because of all the laws and binding views of, I didn't say I want it, I said no, and all of that. So now we want things to be made clearer.
Okay.
Apart from that, just as the woman wants to be desired, the man wants to prove that I desire. So men become adventurous when it comes to desire. They know they are the ones who need to make the run, and they will make the run. The adventure, the thrill in the adventure for the man is there. So not only the woman who gets the thrill when a man chases, the man also gets the thrill when he chases and hunts and then finally wins. Because for the man it's like a competition out there, and then when I win, I have a crown.
Interesting. We have to make many crowns now. So within the context of sexual desire, very often we hear how media, pornography influences people's views of what sexual desire is. Do you think that people still want what they see in the media when it comes to sexual desire? Any of you can go for it.
I would say yes. Yes, people erroneously or unknowingly are nudged in a certain direction without them even realizing, because you're scrolling on your phone and not even realizing that your brain is registering all of these images because that's just what you're doing, and you realize you've done it for 2-3 hours in a go. So you've had that constant barrage of information that your psyche has picked up that you're not even aware of. So yes, it nudges you in a certain direction. And if you don't pause to, one, get to know yourself, understand what actually stimulates you, what actually attracts you, human to human physically, then sexually you will probably get it wrong and think that you're achieving satisfaction, but not entirely. So,
Edwin?
So our brain is not able to distinguish between real and imaginary. Yes.
Okay. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if I tell you your house is on fire, immediately your brain picks the information that my house at this place has caught fire. And if you have quite a bit, an amount of belonging in there, you will start responding as if you have seen your house
On fire.
on fire.
Understood.
And that is what a lot of people are able to get to us when it's April Fool's Day. There is always, without you being aware, there is always a way to get you with the things you so much cherish. So the brain is able to accept whatever information it gets.
So I guess it's the idea that once you think it, it's real to you.
It is real.
Okay.
And then also the brain sends the signal, the electrical signal to the body to respond to the information it is getting. That is why you would be watching a pornographic material, and then your physiological response to when you are seeing an actual human maybe naked in bed would be.
Okay.
Because the information the brain is getting is that there is sexual encounter. So the brain is now preparing the body to also respond to that. Now, because our brain is not able to differentiate this, it is important to note that the information we get can equally transcend into physical desire. So for some people, media pornography may make them have more and more affinity to desire. And then for some people too, it might not be. So maybe things may be over-exaggerated in the sense that you have a perfect feminine feature who can be thrown up and down.
Tell them who throws anybody up and down where?
And so when they get you, they want to
Try that.
try it. And then if you are not able to sustain it, I mean, it's an act actually.
Yeah.
It's an act. It's like gymnastics. People are really rehearsing to do it. And then you can't just come and use your one pot belly somewhere like mine to do the same act. So really, the challenge is that the brain can pick the information and then make you desire the same, which will bring some form of unreal expectations.
So, and I'm sure you encounter different couples and friends that you interact with, right? Seeing as there's such a big gap between reality and the perception or the desire when it comes to sex. And I think that there are people who have incredible sex. I don't think that, and sex doesn't need to be gymnastics for it to be incredible, right? Because there's always a connection. There's also the intent to please each other based on what the other person wants, right? And just even a certain comfort level during the act of intimacy. The question I have is, how do you get someone who has a certain perception of what sex should be like, right? Or a certain desire to come to and close that gap? Because otherwise, I can see how that can create all sorts of problems in a union or any partnership of sorts.
and it does, but go ahead.
Communication is number one.
Okay.
You know, not only media, sometimes society also places some peer pressure. They say what culture is peer pressure from our ancestors.
Okay. I get that.
So society puts a certain burden on how sex must be.
Okay.
And for some of the women I have worked with, some of them thought when you finish having children, you are done having sex. So it will
It's
inform.
purely for procreation. It's not for
Yeah, exactly.
pleasure.
So if you're going to have 3 children like mine, it means you're going to have
But
sex 3 times with your husband.
Wow.
Yes. So all the other extra are just advantageous. Take it and leave it. Leave me. Once in a month, once in every 3 months, whatever, and all of that. So this also informs how they see the engagement of sex. So imagine the man coming from media pornography and the woman coming from
That mindset.
the disconnect to be wide. It takes communication. Communication is not just expecting me to understand. And unfortunately, in most corporate relationships, that's what happens. I expect you to know that people are doing wild things out there. I expect you to know that.
For you to do wow things for here.
But then communication, mutual understanding helps break the gap a lot.
Understood.
I guess you wanted to add something.
I was going to say that female sexuality has been shrouded in this big cocoon of don't go there, taboo, let's not talk about it, who knows what it is. And actually, quite factually, in many places, female sexuality through female genital mutilation has been completely curtailed right from infancy. So there are many, many things that, for me, as a sexual reproductive health researcher, we're trying to unpack. Now, it is one of the most important things to empower women, adolescent girls and women, or whatever the age may be, to begin to understand their sexuality. Because that really, really creates, like he's saying, a big discord and a big disconnect. One, you have to begin to understand yourself physiologically. I can't tell you the number of even women, I was going to say adolescent girls, but adolescent girls and women who cannot tell me when their last menstrual period was, who cannot tell me how to even continue to check their monthly cycle, what the monthly cycle means even, and all of that, and how that may, we haven't even talked about their sexuality yet. So these are just the basic understanding of their health and makeup as a woman. Then there's so many who don't even know the anatomy and physiologic function of their sexual reproductive organs. They have no idea what the vulva is. All we know is there's a vagina, but there's not just a vagina. But maybe we'll do anatomy and physiology on another day, but this is really important. So if you please note that down. Yes. We should have this conversation with models so people know. Women do not know that where you urinate from is not the same as where you have your menstrual period from or where you're going to have sexual intercourse from. Mm-hmm. 2 completely different things. One is called your urethra that leads to your bladder and so forth and so on. And the other is through your vagina that goes to your cervix to your uterus, also known as the womb. So the disconnect is so wide if you don't even understand the simple physiology that, okay, when you look at your face, you see, this is my nose, this is my mouth. Eyes. We teach children, so what is your mouth for? What are your ears for? However, unfortunately, when it comes to another region's, quote unquote, even using that word is not supposed to be what actually used, exactly. Right?
You should have said it as it is.
As it is. We never want to talk about our reproductive health organs. Apart from the lack of knowledge of the basic use and function and where even things are located, there is also the confusion about the messages that we get as we're growing up. So growing up as a girl in Ghana, I was just constantly told sex is bad.
Yeah. You get pregnant if a man touches you or looks at you.
You can get illnesses, like constantly. Although all of those things may very well be true and are important, however, we were only bombarded with those and never with the other positive aspects of it. Then now you grow up, you get into a long-term relationship or a marriage, and suddenly you're supposed to just
become this sexual being
into this radical sexual being who can perform all kinds of things. So to really overcome this, we have to begin as a society to unpack and unthink the way in which female sexuality is presented, because it is part of who we are as men and as women. For the men also, so now if a woman is not even able to identify her own body parts, you can imagine the confusion down there for what the men think in that moment of intimacy, especially at the beginning. Men also may not realize the emotional needs that women have to be able to blossom into that sexual being that we want them to be. Because for a lot of women, it's not only the physicality of sexual intimacy, but it's also the connection, the bond, the love, all of those things that women crave for, that we want men to be able to do and to provide.
Absolutely.
I perfectly agree with that. In fact, when the woman gets the emotional needs she wants from you, it doesn't take much to satisfy her sexually.
Hey, it doesn't take much, but
yes.
You see, I'm quite still here, right here.
As we may know, sex for a woman does not begin during the process. Probably would begin in the morning when you're going to work. The hello you said, the I miss you texted, and all of that all contribute to
whether you're getting some.
Whether you're getting some and you're getting a quality one.
there is that
Or
too.
you're getting a crucifix.
Exactly. Not just come do your thing and go.
Yeah.
So the emotional desire that women have, the affection they desire, unfortunately, sometimes it is not well communicated. And of course, that's also because we are not taught to articulate our emotions and all of that. So we often hide these. But then, when women's emotional needs are really met, the physical wants a man wants from a woman, it's easy to have it.
Yeah.
I agree.
Just to come in here, so if we want that desire, sexual desire, the man desires the woman in turn desires the man, then we have to take the duty part out of it, because when that comes into the picture, then it's no longer something that I desire to do. However, it's something that I have to do. And then that takes all the joy and the pleasure and the enjoyment all away. So it's a twofold thing that we need to take care of. For instance, a lot of the time, though, I would say not all men, but many men are only looking at their desire for the woman, not necessarily working on her desire for him in turn. So if we want to take it out into social media, men are now programmed to desire, the flat bellies and all of these things that may not be true physical attributes of any woman with a natural body, right? However, some way, somehow, the women are not conditioned to also want a six-pack, and we accept.
They are or they are not?
They're not entirely.
Yeah, okay, get you.
Well, there are compensations.
Yeah, so we relax and then accept the compensatory ones. Perhaps maybe he has money, he's financially stable, he provides. However, if you want sustained desire, physical desire at the baseline, then I think the men also need to put some work in to be able to look attractive also, because I would say that a lot of male attractiveness is getting lost a bit. This is just my personal opinion. And the amount of work that women have to put in to quote unquote continue to look attractive. We can talk about from hair to makeup to now all kinds of cosmetic or plastic work that has come into it. Have an exercise routine, keep your skincare routine going, your nighttime facial routine, like so many of it, right? And it's difficult enough to keep track of all of them. But what does the man have to do? Put on a pair of pants and his shirt, and then we go away with that. Not all men, though. Certainly not Edwin, because he looks nice right now.
Thanks, my wife.
So I'll say this, though. What I find is more and more men are becoming more interested in their appearance.
More, they are.
True.
So if you went to a spa, you're likely to have, in the hour that you're there, you're likely to have one man pop in to kind of have his nails done or a pedicure and a manicure done, right?
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Now, Ikea, would you say women like that too? Do we like a man who's, well put together?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, personal hygiene is a big thing.
Yes,
Like,
I know, right?
how well you keep yourself, right? And there are lots of men who are not aware about how their personal hygiene impacts intimacy with a woman, right? There are men who are doing lipo, right?
That's true. And getting fillers and all kinds of
exactly. There are men who are doing a lot of dental work. So it might not be obviously up to the level that women are taking care of their appearance, but a lot of men are, doing that.
Well, it's good to know that a lot of men are doing it, but I think we need to begin to teach young boys also some of these things. I guess they maybe grow and pick it up along the way that, to be able to be popular with the girls, you need to look good, smell good, and so forth and so on. But it's not really something that we work too hard to begin to teach. But it's always a conversation that we can have. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a nice dovetail into emotional desire. Because remember, we're talking about the different kinds of desires, and we've stayed a long time on sexual desire. So emotional desire is that need to connect, love, companionship, affection, and so on. What role how do you think it's shaped? Let's start with, how do you think emotional desire is shaped?
So, there is always the need for appreciation. We love to be appreciated. And so most of the things we do, they are almost on the selfish base, right? So if I do something good, if there is an act of kindness I do for you, that's thank you, that's joy on your face because of what I got you satisfies me. Right. So I always give this example. If you're driving and there is an older woman crossing the road and you stop for her to cross, no matter how much she's delaying, and you're even blocking other vehicles from coming, and they go and they turn and they do like, thank you, my son. The feel-good factor you get is often more than even what the older woman has gotten. And that is because you love to do the good because it is for yourself. The fulfillment of the satisfaction you get, right? So on emotional desire, we always connect well with the value of our input and the appreciation we get from what we are giving, the emotions we are satisfying in the other partner. Right. So if I'm able to get you a surprise and you go like, how did you know my color? How did you know this is what I wanted at this time? That is so much satisfaction. Right. So I am reaching your emotions even with the gifts or whatever I am giving you.
Yeah.
The same way, if I am able to know that you are not in your elements today, and I'm able to ask you, are you all right? If I hug you at the point you really need a hug, it's almost as if this man really understands me, right? And that is on emotional level, and that's as I said earlier on, that alone is almost a prerequisite for the woman even before you get to the physical. Or would you agree or disagree?
As the resident female on this panel. So by and large, I would agree. But then to also answer Ikuya's question, if what is the root of our emotional desire? I would say it's based on our value system. So if you have altruistic values, for instance, that would go right into what Edwin was saying, that then you feel good when you do things for others, when you volunteer, you have maybe perhaps a church or religious group where you help the community, all of those things. So that's one bit of it. Those are in line with somebody's altruistic values. There could also be selfish emotions, and people are not always as good as we think perhaps they are or they might be. Selfishness can be a root of an emotional desire, that you would want to have things only for yourself. In Chi, it's a very literal translation, like you only want to get things for yourself. And then if you are such a natured person that always affects whatever your emotional desires are, because none of it would ever be beneficial to the other person. Even if it is, the benefit to you will always be higher or made priority than for the other person. And those people do not do too well in their long term or their, or relationships of any kind, really, whether family relationships or intimate relationships. So emotional desires, we can look at it in various ways, but I think it really syncs well with somebody's value system, and we are all emotional beings, and that's the lens through which we kind of look at the universe, and then that translates a lot into our behavior patterns.
Okay. Got it. Let's go into material desires. So when I think about material desires, it's, wanting physical things, the acquisition of, money, wealth, possessions, right? Now, how do societal norms and culture influence material desire?
Well, I would say that if we're talking material desire, then we could perhaps branch off into religion a little bit, because religion primarily teaches us not to put all our hopes and gains and energies onto amassing material things. So if you have the desire to, accumulate material worth, then very often that could be in opposition to things that were thought, across religions. I don't want to only put it into Christianity, but it's a major tenet of it. Although there's a lot also about God does not want me to be poor and so forth and so on, and to have the possessions that I want. So all of this dialogue, you could tell that it sits within what your religious beliefs may be, and then that kind of feeds it. Now, you may not be a religious person at all, and you may want a comfortable life, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a comfortable life. Also, you may just want to just have the basics to be able to have sustenance and covering and feed your family, and so people have various levels of, if I reach where I can take care of myself, take care of my family, cover my needs, and have a little bit to spare, I'm okay. Others too may want to go all the way to the zenith or the pinnacle and have everything in the world that they could get themselves into, and that may lead a person, if they're not careful or they're unbalanced in one way or the other, into doing things that are not necessarily right to be able to get there, because that will, of course, affect what your moral values are, what you what deals you take, what deals you wouldn't take, and all of those things. But wealth, desire for material things is almost basic to us as humans. And also in the world where social media is showing you people who are always on vacation, always, flying a private jet somewhere and don't fly commercial like the rest of us, always driving the best cars, always have the best clothes. But we always forget to think, is that really real? Are those the most important things in life? So that brings us back to our value system, like I was saying.
Okay. So our value system influences our push or our desire for material things.
Yes.
Okay. Does society standards that it sets influence our desire for material things?
Oh yes, that's like I was saying, for social media, that's a lot of what is being pushed, in our faces, and we welcome them into our homes because we're at home in bed and looking at all these things, and that creates a longing in there for us, creates that desire for us, and then that adds a little bit of almost jealousy, that can come in. So it can produce negative emotions because
I've been told that you have to say uncomfortable emotion.
Uncomfortable emotions,
Because no emotion is negative, I've been told.
Uncomfortable emotions. Well, I like that. So we'll rephrase that and say uncomfortable emotions that we still have to grapple with nonetheless.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So to add to that, society plays a major role. See the way even our proverbs go like, towards when the gun shoots, it's coming from the bosom of a man. What does that mean? The man is seen to be the one to have and to give, right? And it is Ziglar who said people buy for emotional reasons, not for logical reasons, right? Now, if I want material things, to what end? What do I want it for? I want to amass all the wealth in this world. What for? To satisfy a certain need, not personal need. To be able to give to people who would now show some level of appreciation, to make me feel like I'm competent enough, I have what it takes to give. So it satisfies my need to fit into society.
Yeah.
So there is actually a link between societal or social desire and emotional desire with material desire when it comes to society playing a role.
Okay. Based on the conversation that we've had, maybe let's dart into spiritual desire a bit, and then we'll come back, right? Because we are very, very, very spiritual on the continent, right? What are your thoughts as to what drives spiritual desire, right? So you take a boy who's raised in the church, and he's been raised in faith, right? So maybe even a mass server. And then he grows up and suddenly he says that I am no longer, I'm not going to be, I'm not of the faith anymore, right? And then on the other hand, a child who's raised in a home where they're not in any way religious, and then grows up and is actively seeking a connection and with a higher purpose, right? So in your experience or in your opinion, what drives spiritual desire?
Go ahead, ladies first.
Well, I would say, so the question is what drives spiritual desire? I would say one, if we took it from the biblical point of view, the Bible itself, Jesus said on his Sermon on the Mount that those who are conscious of their spiritual need are happier, right? And what does that mean? So that means that innately, if we believe, the Bible and Christianity, innately we have a need for spiritual, quote unquote, satisfaction, where we want to bond with our creator or our maker, right? And that is how humans are made up, if you take what the Bible says, right? So that's where that need will originate from, or that desire. So very often people will feel incomplete, people will feel hollow. There are examples in the Bible of rich people coming to Jesus because they had all the material or all their material desires satisfied. However, there was that need for that spiritual consciousness that was not done or was not fulfilled, if you will. There are many other religions across the world also that believe in a higher power and some level of spirituality and keeps us humble, if you will, as human as we are. So we can say that also could originate from there if we were to take other religions. There are people who meditate and chant. There are Buddhists who also have different beliefs. There are, of course, Muslims who believe in the Supreme Being, Allah, and all of that. So we do have, you realize that human societies across the world have some level of spirituality that forms a very key part of their being. If we even go back to African traditional religion, there's the Unyame, right? In addition to the lesser gods, if you're of that value system or that belief. So all societies have that in them somehow, some way, and very often people feel a disconnect or a dissatisfaction or a loss of their lives is somehow not complete when that bit is not pursued or that desire is not fully satisfied. So that would be my personal answer to it.
So to add to that, I will take it from two angles. First, self-actualization, and then desire to know, which is purpose. We always have the desire for knowledge. That is why if you check, if there is an issue, let's say there is a car accident that attracts noise, in no time, there are a lot of people who will come out of their homes to witness. Everyone wants to know what is happening first, and that is why we have gotten to a place where we are in the information age. Information drives us, right? And so as people search for knowledge, as they read their scriptures, as they listen to their teachers, it gets to a point where there is the desire to know more beyond that which is told. For example, growing up, Adam ate the apple. And then as you get older...
Was it Adam who ate the apple?
Yeah, Eve gave Adam the apple. And then, please. and then we get to know it wasn't an apple after all.
What was it?
The fruit of the knowledge of good and evil.
Okay.
The Bible did not specify a particular fruit, mango or whatever. And I know a great man of God, he is late now, who said he did not like eating apple because of the stories the Sunday school teachers do. So there is always the desire to know more. If you realize that there is some inconsistencies in what you've been told, you are in search of more knowledge. And then when you are also at a point where you are searching for purpose, then it connects. Then also self-actualization. After the material things I've gotten, after everything I desired for, what
next?
Is there something above? Oftentimes, religion serves that purpose. Religion gives people the hope for more, giving to society, meeting the will of a supreme being, and so on. So indeed, people tend to want to grow spiritually, finding their spiritual purpose, if you like. And that is what drives the desire. Then also there is the fear of punishments. If you do evil, you go to hell. If you do good, you go to heaven. And if I have had some desire over and over that I think is wrong, right? Where right and wrong comes in. If I think my desires have been wrong, then I get to a point where I want to go to the other level or the other side of the bargain, right? And so now I am searching for something higher. I'm searching for moving away from whatever desire. Then there is, it's only the Bible I would be able to quote because of where I come from. The others I hardly know, right? So there is a scripture that says, delight yourself in the Lord and he will give you the desire of your heart, right? And so if you are desiring and you're putting in the effort and the effort is not efforting, then let me turn my face to the Lord and desire him more. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all other things. So now it's almost like a bargain. If I go towards a higher spiritual growth, I may meet all other desires that I am having.
So to add to that, I think every human needs to go on their own personal pilgrimage in search of truth, right? And whatever will eventually resonate with them and wherever they will land. But then there's that spiritual need or desire, which may be innate or subconscious or whatever the case may be, but that will still need to be pursued at a point in time.
Okay. Conflicting desires. I have a desire to do A. It doesn't necessarily gel with my desire for B. Do they live together?
Always. I always want to eat cake, but that's indirect. But you want to weight. Oh, but that's the right. We all live with some level of conflict or conflicting desires, as human as we are and as contrary as we are. So we have internal battles and conflicts that, You know, we sometimes you want to be a good person and yet you're not. You know, if we're to go back to the Bible, the Apostle Paul said that the good that he wants to do, that's not what he ends up doing, you know. So from time immemorial, humans have always had conflicting desires. If it can just be an example, as simplistic as the example I gave, versus something very much deeper. You could talk about sexuality, conflicting. We don't know which way, a person may not know which way they stand. That's also been in the news recently, but that's a real thing that people battle with. We can have conflicting emotions. You know, people may actually have real diagnoses of for instance, bipolar disorder, where one time they're extremely happy and you know, and going on okay, and to the other time, on another side or in a minute later, they're in the depths of despair and in depression. So we all are on that spectrum of good versus bad. You know, like they say, the two devils on your shoulder, right? There's the good one whispering good things, and then there's always the angel whispering, the devil whispering bad things, and then the angel whispering good things to you. So that has always been the case. So I wouldn't say anybody should be too perturbed if they have conflicting desires. I think it's relatively normal within the human spectrum of emotions.
And of course, we have always been dual. The duality of humans. It looks like we don't see it, but it is there. There is a soft hand of the mother to preserve, and yet hard enough to do hard work. So the same mother has a soft, caring hand and a firm hand to work for the children. We can go on and on the duality, which to me I think is a good thing. So there will always be the conflicting idea or the conflicting desires. Sometimes it is because of our innate need for things, and then societal. So there is the id and the superego, and we find ourselves the ego being in the middle. The ego is being strangled by the id to give or to do what the id wants without caring what anybody does. And then the superego is trying to put you in societal rightness. And there is always a pull. So conflicting desires will always exist with us. And I wouldn't say it is in itself bad.
Thank you. My last question is around when you hold a space where you have desires that you might find are not necessarily healthy for yourself. And each of you can give me one or two things. What do you do to navigate those unhealthy desires? Because we've talked about how desire is motivational, it's future driven, it supports dreams and ambitions, and it can propel you to be better, right? But at the same time, desire in itself could be destructive depending on the nature of the desire, right? So it would be good to understand, let's say I'm caught in this cycle of an unhealthy desire, be it a sexual desire of so, because you talked about pedophilia at a point, right? What are maybe, you know, the things that I could be doing or thinking about to navigate this unhealthy desire?
I would say, I'm a proponent for a guided process, because if it is something very basic, okay, so I know I have to study for an exam, but I don't feel like studying for an exam. You can work yourself through that and find your motivation somehow to go do that. But like you said, if it's something deeper and more consequential or more detrimental to your function as a well-balanced human being, then you might need a guided process. And that means that have the conversation or a series of conversations with a professional who will offer a different perspective, who would offer practical tools where in those moments of conflict, in those moments of unhealthiness, where you're making unhealthy or unbalanced decisions, you know, and they could be various kinds, because we have many coping mechanisms, and not all of them are the best.
Right.
People might resort to, substance abuse, alcohol misuse, and all kinds of other things. And even the battle of the minds is really exhausting. It does not create space for creativity. It does not leave any room for joy, happiness, all of these positive emotions and things that could make a person beneficial to society. So therefore, it's good for anybody to pause and seek help with tools. It doesn't mean that, I really would like to break the stigma of mental health. It doesn't mean that you're sick or there's anything, crazy, quote unquote, for lack of a better word, or to use a word that people use that's not the best, with you. There's nothing wrong with you for seeking, that's what I call a guided process. We need help sometimes, Your outfit is beautiful, but imagine you did not sew it yourself. Exactly. You went to somebody who is a professional and has the tools and equipment to make a beautiful garment, and they made it for you according to your size. So that's all that a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a therapist will do. They'll just offer the tools and services that you might need over time.
This is usually the last statements, when you're talking about seeking help. And so I would rather reiterate that rather than say other things. But before that, we are wired with conscience to know what we are dealing with.
Yeah.
So we know that this desire is destructive. We know that this desire is beneficial. What is left is the effort to deal with it. So if you are within a space where you have control, then make sure you are planning and you are implementing. If you realize you've been outnumbered or out-controlled, immediately seek professional help.
Thank you both.
It's been a pleasure.
We are getting to the fun part of things. Give me a moment.
Right.
So to what I call the fun part of all of this, I make you cocktail, mocktail, whatever it is, depending on what rocks your boat. And you're required to just tell me 2 things that are in it.
Okay.
Please do not tell me there's water in it. Do not tell me there's ice in it.
Okay.
Don't tell me there's sugar in it.
Okay.
Because those are some of the tricks people have played on me. So those are my eliminating things. But because there are 2 of you, each of you will just tell me 1 thing.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right.
Okay.
Let's do this first. Stir it up.
Yes.
Stir it up. Thank you for coming.
Okay. It's good. So from the bubbles, there's some level of carbonation. Or ginger ale.
There's no ginger ale.
So would it be or am I completely off?
Well, let's see.
Tangerine.
There's no tangerine.
I taste mango.
Mango.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. You got it right as well.
I did, yes, you did.
So how do you taste the mango?